Rivendell is not just our home, but home to many diverse and beautiful creatures. But not all of them are welcome. In this video, we're going to show you how we manage the more pesky creatures around here. I'm talking European wasps, jackjumper ants, and rats. And stick around until the end, because we've got one very welcome resident to show you too. The change of seasons is not just a date on a calendar, but a sensory experience of sight and sound. Leaves turning gold and red, insects and animals sensing the change, and a feeling in the air that it's time to prep for the weather ahead. Autumn brings a lot of beauty to this land, but it also heralds the emergence of the dreaded European wasp. European wasps aren't even meant to be here. They were accidentally introduced to Australia, and like any bad house guest, they've made themselves very comfortable and very unwelcome. Unlike our more chill native wasps, these guys are aggressive, persistent, and seem to take personal offence to you existing outdoors. By late summer, their nests can have thousands of workers, all on a mission to ruin your afternoon. And they don't just give a very painful sting, they can sting multiple times, and they're very happy to do so. Disturb a nest, and you better be prepared to run like hell. They're also not great for the environment, hammering native species including caterpillars, flies, spiders, and pollinators as they hunt and kill insects for protein. Fewer insects means less food for birds, reptiles, and small mammals, so it can quietly impact the whole food chain. Add to that competing for nectar and harassing beehives, and they may not be wiping out bee populations, but they're certainly adding pressure. And for already vulnerable native bees, that's the last thing they need. So yeah, when we go out each year to get rid of them, it's not just revenge, it's community service. One of the more environmentally friendly strategies people use against European wasps is queen trapping. The idea is pretty simple. In spring and autumn, queen wasps are out searching for food and places to establish nests. If you can reduce queen numbers early, you reduce the number of nests later on. The traps themselves are very basic. We use recycled bottles with a fermented sugar-based attractant inside. No pesticides. The smell attracts queen wasps, but tends to be far less attractive to bees and other pollinators. We usually hang a few around the property during the peak queen activity periods and check them periodically throughout the season. It's obviously not a silver bullet, but it can help reduce pressure before colonies really get established. But what about if the wasps have already moved in? Well, faced with a wasp problem, you've really only got two options. The first is to try and locate the nest. On a large property like ours, that's not always easy. European wasps can travel up to around 1 kilometre to forage, so following them back to the source isn't always practical. If you do manage to track one down, nests are usually well hidden, in places like underground burrows, dense vegetation, or concealed spaces where they're protected from disturbance. In the past, when we did locate the nests, we'd bring in professional pest control. It's effective, but it can get expensive when you're dealing with recurring infestations across rural land. These days, if we do end up dealing with a nest ourselves, it's a very careful, controlled situation. Timing matters, because even at night when activity is lower, you're still dealing with something that can react fast if it's disturbed. Some people use a torch with red light, like red cellophane over it, because wasps don't see red very well. Whether that makes you feel safer or just slightly more confident is debatable. And yes, stretching is absolutely part of the routine. Not because it helps the process, but because once things start moving, you better be prepared to make a very quick exit. Let's just say you don't hang around for a post-game chat. But there's also a second option. For the past couple of years, we've been following a baiting approach that we first came across through community discussions around European wasp control here in Australia. I'm not going to go into exact details on formulations or anything like that, because this kind of pest control involves regulated chemicals and needs to be handled carefully and in line with local rules. But the basic idea behind it is fairly straightforward. We use pretty basic bait stations, nothing fancy. Just small containers that keep the rain out, keep other animals off it, and give the wasps a clear way in. The idea isn't clever engineering, it's just making sure the bait stays where we put it long enough for the wasps to find it. We place these in areas where we consistently see wasp activity, usually along known flight paths around the property. The bait itself is protein-based, since wasps are actively seeking protein while feeding their larvae. In our case, we found they're particularly interested in certain types of meat, which can vary depending on what's available locally. Once these stations are out, we observe how much activity develops over time. A strong response usually indicates there's active foraging in the area. The final stage of baiting is used under controlled conditions and targets the colony at the source, rather than just the individual wasps we see flying around. And just to be clear, this is not something to attempt casually or without following proper guidelines. Pesticide use is tightly regulated for good reason, and it needs to be handled responsibly and strictly in line with approved instructions and local regulations. Next up, let's look at jackjumper ants. Jackjumpers are native here, and they belong in the bush, just not right outside our front door. So we only remove nests in the immediate area to keep things safe and leave the rest of the population alone. It's about balance. We're not trying to get rid of them, just managing the risk where we live and work. Besides, we want to look after the echidnas here, and they just love a delicious jack jumper meal. So why remove those nests at all, you might ask? Even though they're native, jack jumpers are one of the few insects in Tasmania that can genuinely be dangerous to people. Their sting can trigger severe allergic reactions in some cases, including anaphylaxis. And even when it's not serious, the sting is brutally painful. I found out the hard way while gardening once, and I can confidently say I don't want a repeat of that experience anytime soon. Let me know in the comments if you know what I mean. So when we do need to deal with a nest, the first step is simply identifying them. Once you know what you're looking for, they're pretty easy to spot. It's usually a little mound of loose gravel, and if you take a closer look, you'll see them moving in and out. Just don't get too close. They don't have much patience for visitors. From there, it's a careful process of dealing with the nest directly. We always make sure to take appropriate precautions, long clothing, gloves, and keeping a safe distance, because they will defend their territory if disturbed. After that, we treat the nest and leave the area. In most cases, that's all that's needed, and we only ever do this for nests in high-use areas around the property. Before we get to the next pesky critter, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for watching. We've only recently started posting videos here, so it would mean a lot if you could like, subscribe, and click that notification bell. It really helps us out. Now, let's tackle the rats. In the past, we've had issues with rats getting into our ceiling space. There's nothing more annoying than waking up in the middle of the night to hear them running around in the walls and roof. And occasionally chewing on wiring they absolutely should not be chewing on. And then there's the smell if one dies up there, which usually leads to the very unglamorous job of trying to locate and remove it. Not fun. In our case, prevention has been far more effective than dealing with the aftermath. One of the first things we noticed was how quickly vegetation around the house had grown up to roof height. With trees and ferns getting too close, it basically creates a superhighway straight into the roof space. Once we started regular heavy pruning to keep that clearance, the difference was immediate. It sounds simple and rather obvious, and it is, but removing that access point solves a large part of the problem. We also relocated the giant ferns to a more appropriate place. The other strategy we lean on is encouraging a healthy balance of native predators. Birds of prey like eagles, hawks, owls, and falcons all help keep rodent numbers in check. And having mature native trees around gives them good perching and hunting spots. We also have snakes on the property, which naturally help with rodent control. We generally leave them alone if they're in their own space. Both of us have done a snake relocation course and have the equipment if needed, but it's not something to attempt without proper training. So far, we haven't had to use those skills here. We're quite happy to let them do what they do best. And honestly, they're pretty effective at keeping the rat population down. But not all things that are creepy crawly are bad at Rivendell. For example, spiders. There are many species of spiders here and they are very important for our ecosystem. We get the usual huntsmans, wolf spiders and black spiders, but also the very cool and rarely seen Tasmanian cave spider. These are huge ancient spiders that live for decades. We have had one living in our well for about 10 years, and we occasionally check in to see how she's doing. But recently, we found a new hiding place. I'll let Chris explain.
This is a Tasmanian cave spider. They're very cool. They live for decades, I think 40 years, and we have one in our well, which I kind of have as a pet almost. But this is the second one I found on our property, and I found it unexpectedly, and she's very cool. So we'll just show you. She's underneath this board. So we'll just expose her, and then I will shine a flashlight on it. So you can see there's a board there.
Oh, there's two.
Oh, yeah. There's her egg sac. And she's a beauty, isn't she?
We're really interested to hear what you're dealing with where you live. Have you got European wasps, jack jumpers, or something completely different causing issues in your part of the world? Let us know in the comments. Life on a rural property is ever changing. Every season brings its own challenges and a fair bit of adapting along the way. Most of what we've talked about today isn't about completely removing these creatures. It's about finding a balance where we can live alongside nature while still keeping ourselves safe and the property functional. And as always here at Rivendell, we're learning as we go. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.